You're listening to the Blind Tiger Record Club podcast, where we champion music of all genres, and we believe vinyl is king.
For a dying man, I feel pretty good, I feel pretty good. For a righteous man, I'll do what I should, do what I should. For a fallen man, I'll get up again, I'll get up again. For a dying man, I feel pretty good. Oh, we're born to trouble as the sparks fly high. Born to trouble as the sparks fly. It's alright. In the light, I see you glowing. It's alright. In the light, I see you glowing.
This episode is brought to you by 85 Supply. 85 Supply is a nationwide supplier of wholesale merchandise. These guys offer over 250,000 different products. They've worked with customers like CMT, Uber, Chick-fil-A, LaCroix, all the way to some of the most popular names in modern entertainment. Whether it's 50 pieces or 100,000 pieces, these guys have you covered. 85 Supply is a hands-on boutique merchandise experience. Check them out at 85supply.com, printing at its finest.
It's alright. In the light, I see you glowing.
Blind Tiger Record Club is a box subscription service that delivers new vinyl directly to your door each month. You can choose from 6 genre styles, including Singer Songwriter, rock, alternative rock, classic rock, jazz, soul and blues, and discover. Now B.T.R.C offers free shipping for all subscriptions in the U.S. You can even add vinyl picked from the store added to your next box, all with free shipping. So go to blindtigerrecordclub.com and start discovering and rediscovering new and classic music today.
For a dying man, I feel pretty good, I feel pretty good.
All right, well, welcome back to Season 2 of Blind Tiger Record Club podcast, and we're going to do Part 2 of the last episode, which was our discussion on the best vinyl of 2018. And back with us is Austin Cox and Cody Drigger. So welcome back, guys.
Hello.
Thanks for having me, man.
Just like we did in the Part 1 of this episode, we've pulled some of our favorites from the B.T.R.C. Best Vinyl of 2018 list that was posted at the beginning of the year on blindtigerrecordclub.com. So on that list, we have 80 titles broken up in 4 styles: Singer Songwriter, alternative rock, and jazz, soul, and blues. And all of these records were released on vinyl in 2018 that we'll be discussing today, and each guest has pulled titles from that list to discuss. So they're not in any order, they're just great records. So let's drop the needle and talk about some of the best vinyl of 2018. All right, to start things off, I thought we would start with one of our favorite topics, a Dave Cobb record. So let's talk about the Marcus King Band and his record, Carolina Confessions. You know, Austin, on the last episode, you had mentioned the fact that you don't even really necessarily look for Dave Cobb records. I mean, you just find yourself continuing to like records you hear and then find out it's Dave Cobb. And this was the one that I was referencing, that I did the same thing with this one. I was actually researching this one to do our editorial content for doing our emails and our post about this being our subscription title of the month. And that was when I found out it was Dave Cobb. And so same kind of situation for me. And this is hands down one of my favorite albums of the year. It actually really caught me off guard, which, you know, some of this we'll talk about, but I just kind of had them in more of like a jam band category in my head. And when I started listening to this record, it was just one that blew me away. And I love the record so much that, you know, we're going to be doing a full podcast on this album in a few weeks. So I want to hear you guys' thoughts on it, but we're definitely going to dig in deeper on this record later in Season 2. Just first couple facts about it, I guess. I mean, it was released in October of last year, and it peaked at number 2 on Billboard's Blues albums and number 19 on the Americana Folk album chart. It was our Jazz Soul Blues record of the month for November in 2018. And the first song I thought we would listen to and talk about is a song called Homesick. So let's listen to that, and then we'll come back and have a little talk about the record.
One more day, watch the sunrise from the highway. Lord, one more night, sit alone again in the pale moonlight. And I don't know why, seem this ride takes so much longer every time. But my heart is due back south. 100 miles, Lord, they feel like 100 years. Well, my sanity holds on. In my mind, I hear sing a favorite song. So damn tired of this ride. Turn the headlights on, let the moonlight guide. Love is gonna guide me back home. You're the only one makes me homesick. You're the only one keeps me honest. The only one. Love's the only one makes me from staying gone.
That was a song called Homesick, and that is currently at AAA Radio, and it's at number 26 right now. I think it's a great song for their first single because it represents like a really sweet spot on this record. It's, obviously a blues-driven arrangement, but it's got this really singable chorus that kind of draws you in. So I actually think this was a perfect song for them to pick for their first single.
For sure. It's kind of a step in a different direction for Cobb as a producer as well, with the kind of the horns and more of like the funky horn sound.
Yeah, I mean, and they travel with all that, and they're a really, really tight unit.
Oh man, I mean, Marcus King is a phenomenal guitar player. It's insane. And his voice is he's one of those guys that you don't expect it. But I know we've mentioned this on the podcast 100 times, but he's kind of a perfect match with Cobb, being that he has that kind of unique vocal set, and so Cobb's able to put that right in the front of the mix. I love that record. I actually stumbled on him. I think it was on my YouTube algorithm, suggested a video of him, and I went down the YouTube wormhole, and I was like, man, this dude is such a good singer and phenomenal guitar player. And then I went and looked up the record, and of course he was recording with Dave Cobb, but this was definitely one of my favorite records from last year.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a great point about the horns too. I mean, it's specifically, regarding like Cobb records. I mean, I think one of the records we talked about last week, which was Anderson East, that had a lot of horns too. But the difference is this horn section is actually part of Marcus King's band. Like you'll actually see this live.
Right. Yeah. It's not just a part of the production, in the studio and like a layer in the songs. It's actually, this is what the band sounds like.
I think it's worth noting, especially because we're talking about his vocal. He's 22. And this is like his third record, I think. So he started recording in his teens. He was discovered by Warren Haynes, which was one of the reasons I kind of had them, in this jam band category in my head. Because, he's done stuff with the Allman Brothers and was a founder of Government Mule. And he kind of discovered the whole band, but I mean, specifically Marcus King. And so he's kind of like been mentoring him for a while, even though this record, he even produced his first couple of records, but obviously Dave Cobb did this one. But you kind of think about these jam band influences and you kind of assume that that's going to be the way that he goes. And when you listen to this record, it's just not that way. I mean, these songs are complete songs. They're melodic. They're I mean, if anything, like the improvisation feels more like a jazz record than like a jam band record. I mean, it's just, and to your point too, Austin, I mean, he's an insane guitar player. So just hearing kind of all those that go into like still commercially packaged, singable, well-written songs. I mean, it's awesome. And there's just, I don't know many guys out there that really sound like this.
I think you nailed it, David, by when you said that the songs are complete, because that's something that sets it apart. A lot of the jam bands, they're not really complete songs. Like you're there, you're listening to the musicianship, and you're listening to people vamp and shred and stuff like that. But these songs, it fuses great musicianship with complete songs that stand alone.
Yeah, there's a good flow to the entire record, as opposed to like if you were to throw on like no hate to like Grateful Dead or Allman Brothers. I'm a big Allman Brothers fan, but I have a couple of live records where I'm just like, man, this entire side A is one song,
Yeah.
And you get that, like, I mean, I'm sure there's those moments live, but on the record, Cobb did a really good job of bringing that live sound to the record. I'm really excited to see what else he can do too, being that he's only 22 years old. That kind of blows me away how mature this record is for a 22-year-old. I mean, geez, I was playing power chords when I was 22. This dude's like infusing blues and jazz, and it's phenomenal.
Like you mentioned earlier, it actually really is a good fit for Dave because of even something you mentioned in the last podcast, just how he likes to record with almost a live feel in the room. I mean, and if you're going to do that, you do it with a full, complete band like this. I mean, it's just going to be good. I mean, to me, this is almost like taking all the talents of a really talented, bluesmanship, jam mixture, all that together, but then you're bringing in a producer that's got the wherewithal to keep it all together, doesn't go down any rabbit trails. It just makes this nice, complete record. And you still get these awesome guitar solo parts and, bridges that, have real blues, and horn kind of, trade-offs. And you still get a lot of stuff that I think people are drawn to even within blues, but it's at the end of the day, even if you're not that into blues, like this is a phenomenal record.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wanted to play one more track, Goodbye Carolina, so let's play that and then we'll come back and kind of do final thoughts on this record.
I dreamed of the day when I'd hold you in my arms again, read you all the letters I wrote, never sent, give you all the pieces of me, put them back together again. Life has a way of writing your story for you, and the hero doesn't always get his girl. What if you could change the end to the novel they've been writing, leave no resolution? So goodbye, Carolina. Searched my whole life to find you. Hate to leave you, but I hope you'll know where I'm going, I'll be seeing you. So hold my hand as I'm leaving. Hope my pain would be enough reason. See you on the other side of the blue red sky. Now I'm going, hate to tell you goodbye.
I still can't believe he's 22. So,
yeah, it's insane.
Crazy. Yeah, so come back in a few weeks and we'll listen to more of this album and talk more about it. All right, well, let's make a shift to a completely different style of music. Let's talk about Kurt Vile. Kurt Vile's record is Bottle It In, and this was released on October 12th of 2018. For people that aren't familiar with Kurt, he was a founding member of War on Drugs, which I only mention because he wasn't in there that long. I just mention it because we talked about them a little bit last year. I think all of us really dug that record. Well, that wasn't last year, actually. That was 2017. they won a Grammy last year for Rock Album of the Year. And even though he wasn't part of that record, he kind of comes from that world. When he left the band in 2008, he did his first solo album, and this is his 8th album to date. So it peaked at number 79 on Billboard 200. It was number 2 on independent albums and vinyl albums charts, and it was number 24 on UK albums chart. Honestly, like on other end of year list, like it was probably on 15 or 20 different editorial lists. So, number 9 on Rolling Stone, number 13 on Mojo, number 18 on Up Rocks, number 23 on Uncut. So both on magazines in the UK and in the US, a lot of people had this, in their top whatever number they did. So let's go ahead and get a little bit familiar with them. If you haven't heard them, let's listen to the first single, which was Loading Zones, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Back is aching, but I cannot sleep, 'cause I won't be beat like I am the mayor of some godforsaken town. Sure, they knighted me yesterday, but who needs armor when I've an exoskeleton? I slip and squirm through the cracks, creep around by all the loading zones in my dirty little town. Get my shopping done, longer too, drop some dead weight, clean my hands of what I need to clean my hands of. And all for free by mayoral decree, all from zone to loading zone of my town. Yeah.
All right, well, that was Loading Zones, and that peaked at number 4 on AAA radio, and I think it's still on the charts right now, but it's definitely working its way down. This album continues, to me, to showcase a really important voice in music. And I say that because I look at him as really an independent kind of like rock artist. Like when you think of independent music, this is kind of what I think about, is guys like this. And I feel like he's kind of an influencer to other artists. He's awesome at guitar. There's a lot of guitar work on this record. There's interesting things he does. Like he has this one song called One Trick Pony, and the whole song is really the same note progression, like over and over, and the song's called One Trick Pony. But then he layers it with other instruments and vocals just to keep the song driving. So there's things that he does to me that are just interesting. But he's also got some things to me that are kind of like not really in my wheelhouse. Like he's got some really long songs. Like the second song he released is called Bass Ackwards, and it's 9 minutes long. He's got another one that's at 8 and 2 more that are clocking in at 10. And I'm just not really a fan of songs that go on and on. Somehow a couple of these he gets away with for me, but then there's some others that like I'm just kind of like, let's make that a regular 4-minute track. So yeah. But all in all, I think he's an important voice, and I did enjoy this record this year.
He's one of those really unique artists that I feel like everyone you talk to that's familiar with him will give you a bit of a different opinion. I'm not saying Kurt Weill's Bob Dylan, but it's in that vein of like his vocal styling is very unique, and it's kind of an acquired taste. Lyrically, the way that he writes lyrics, the way they tell stories is very interesting, and there's like a sense of humor. There's like a John Prine sense of humor to some of his lyrics. I know it's a really interesting record. It's super unique, which is refreshing, especially nowadays. Have artists like this gaining popularity is really cool.
Yeah, I think that too. I mean, that's what I was saying about just him kind of being an influence on other artists, because I see him like appearing on certain things or touring, like not opening, but like literally he'll go and play guitar on tours. I mean, he still does stuff with War on Drugs sometimes. So he just seems to be like a really collaborative, like creative person that kind of influences anyone that's kind of in his sphere.
Right. Yeah, and he's been gaining so much popularity. I saw him, what was it, Bonnaroo, I don't know, what was that, 2016, I think? And he was on the main stage, and it was really good. It was really strange, but really good. It's like he's such a interesting guy. Like he kind of like, you can't help but want to keep listening and kind of see what he's going to do or say next, in my opinion.
I agree. All right, well, let's shift gears to another record that I think both of you guys really liked a lot this year. We talked a little bit about arresting Kelly, in the first part of this podcast. And so now let's talk about his wife, Kacey Musgraves. So Kacey Musgraves' Golden Hour, released this year. And I don't know any other way to put it other than I think it just took the entire music industry by storm this past year.
Mm-hmm.
Came out in March, in March 30th. So it came out really early in the year. And it really was kind of like a slow swell. Like by the time we started getting to award season, like it was everywhere, and everybody was writing amazing reviews about it. I mean, it's just like every time I turned around, everybody was just talking about Golden Hour. So
would you say it's a slow burn?
This guy.
Got it.
That's not even the first song we're going to play. But it was produced by Ian Fitchuk and Daniel Tasjian, and it's really fun to see what this record's doing. Knowing that Ian's on it, I've known Ian a long time, and I mean he's had some pretty cool records come out over the last couple of years, but I know this one is got to be really good for him because he's co-written some songs on it as well as co-producing it. So this one is on every list that I looked at towards the end of the year. I mean, and we're talking high on the list, like number 1 on American Songwriters, number 1 on Entertainment Weekly, number 1 on People. So even like not magazines you would normally look at for music, still like right at the top. And then number 2 on Uproxx, number 2 on Pitchfork, 2 on Rolling Stone, number 3 on Billboard, number 3 on NPR, and it just goes on. And even on some editorials overseas like Mojo or NME and Uncut, it was still on the list, just not as high as it was here in the States.
On top of that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it's actually been getting a whole lot of country radio play either.
It has gotten virtually 0 radio play.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great point. This is complete fan and like critical praise.
Yep.
Really interesting. Let's go ahead and listen to the first track. This is the first one's Butterflies, which was her first single. But again, like we just said, I say single, but she really doesn't get radio airplay. So it's not like it charted or did anything there. It was written with 2 pretty big songwriters, Natalie Hemby, who writes a lot around town here, and Luke Laird. So, and he's a real big country writer as well. So she co-wrote this song with them, and let's just take a listen, and then we'll come back and talk.
I was just coasting, never really going anywhere. Caught up in a web, I was getting kinda used to staying there. And out of the blue, I fell for you. Now you're lifting me up instead of holding me down, stealing my heart instead of stealing my crown. Untangled all the strings around my wings that were tied. I didn't know him and I didn't know me. Cloud 9 was always out of reach. Now I remember what it feels like to fly. You give me butterflies.
It's funny because you were joking around about that song Slow Burn, which we're going to listen to next. But this record was a slow burn for me. Like, I wanted to really like it because I knew Ian. I've known Ian for so long, and I saw him posting stuff on socials about it. And I was like, let me check that out. And then people around the office started talking about it, and it took me a while to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
But once I did, I really, really dug it. And that was one of my favorite songs on the record.
With this record, I think what they have done, I think they found they grabbed these pieces that just perfectly fit well together. They found this cute gal with a pleasant voice. She's not like a powerhouse vocalist. Her voice is like very sweet and calming and pleasant. And they wrote songs that are also like just pretty feel good. There's not a lot to focus on or take your attention away than like creating a mood. And that's what the record does. It just creates a mood and puts you in a mood, and that mood is good.
It's a very vibey record.
Everybody likes to listen to it.
It is a nice vibe. I think that's a real good way to put it. I mean, she's definitely not doing face plants because she's on a binge like Rustin's record was, right?
Right. Yeah, those records are polar opposite.
Yeah, which is so interesting considering that they both came out this past year. They're husband and wife. They spoke into each other's work, and you get these two records, which are both great. But man, they're different.
So different. And I think I'm a broken record on this podcast and saying that about all of our picks, but there's something extremely unique about it, and I think that's what makes it so great and one of the best records of the year. And there's something for everybody on the record. Like, you kind of have like Space Cowboy, you kind of get that country disco vibe. You have all the slow jams, like spaced out slow jams that you want. You get all the hooks. She's always had great hooks and really great imagery in her songwriting. I think this is her best record so far. I think a lot of people might have been a little freaked out at first because it wasn't country as they probably thought it should have been.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is something to point out, because I think if you listen to this record, you'll sometimes forget that this is a country record. She didn't like abandon like to this totally pop format the way that like Taylor Swift kind of did. I mean, that
but it's definitely still crossover.
Yeah, it's crossover, but it hasn't. To me, there's still these elements there that you go, oh, okay, yeah, it's still a country record.
She could have easily gone like where she was before with her previous music. She could have definitely easily gone like the outlaw lady kind of thing that like Nikki Lane and Margot are doing, or like a pop direction. And she definitely kind of went the pop princess direction. I think she could have pulled off either, to be honest.
Well, we've mentioned Slow Burn a couple times. Let's go ahead and play that track and then come back and talk a little bit more about this record.
Born in a hurry, always late, haven't been early since 88. Texas is hot, I can be cold. Grandma cried when I pierced my nose. Good in a glass, good on green, good when you're putting your hands all over me. I'm alright with a slow burn, taking my time, let the world turn. I'm gonna do it my way, it'll be alright if we burn it down and it takes all night. It's a slow burn. Yeah.
I love that song.
That is a great song, and I think that's another one too that you can kind of wrap your head around pretty quick, even if some of the album takes you a minute to get kind of used to. But that's a really strong song. I love the way it builds, because I mean, obviously the title of the song is Slow Burn, but the song even does that. It just layers and gets thicker and really delivers by the time you get to the end of the tune, and it's just a great song.
Yeah, man, this entire record, I like how I don't think she'll ever fully let go of like the country roots. She might go full on pop, but like even the kind of country imagery on this record, Space Cowboy, Velvet Elvis, High Horse, and stuff like that. Those are some of my favorite songs. But you listen to something like Slow Burn, and it's so different from everything she's ever done, and it's really refreshing.
I agree. There's enough on this record for everybody. Like, there's enough to keep musicians interested, and it's subtle, but it's there. I look forward to, as I listen to it, there's parts in a song where I look forward to a bass line that's coming up, which is not super common in kind of poppier music. It's usually just bass is just frequency represented with a synth pad or something. But yeah, there's stuff to keep musicians interested. I'm sure producers are all over it because of, analyzing the mix and sounds and that they use. And I think it's just really well done on all fronts.
I want to play one last song on this. We've mentioned it a few times, but Space Cowboy, it is one of the ones that is nominated for a Grammy. To me, this is the song that solidified the strength of the record. I think it's just really strong lyrically even. And so let's play that, and then we'll come back and do like closing thoughts on the album.
You look out the window while I
So Space Cowboy, and I think you have to listen through the verse to even know how it's kind of almost even a play on the title, because otherwise you think of an astronaut with a cowboy hat, maybe,
Right.
But it's the reason I'm bringing that up is because I think it's not just interesting lyrically, but I think what they do with the production on it, because they say space and then they give it space, like they let it breathe before she then says cowboy. It's just like a little cool, subtle production thing that makes the song really strong.
When I heard Space Cowboy, that was like signature Kacey Musgraves to me, because the lyrics kind of got that John Prine sort of wit to it. It's kind of, I don't know, I like it, love it, want more of it, all those things.
I think, like we said, I think the strength of this record is it is really different. But yet, like we said, it still is a country album, and I think that's not an easy thing to do. And it has all these elements that range from these upbeat, almost like they're almost like Bee Gees or something, all the way to like more Singer Songwriter, like something you would see, Bob Dylan, John Prine, or Neil Young or somebody like that do. I think that this is going to be one of those records that's almost like a style shaper in country, where when we get into the rest of this year and going into 2020, I think you're going to start seeing other people try to find other acts that can do this, and who knows, maybe radio will come around. But I think very very much the way we could have had the same conversation. Matter of fact, we did it a year ago on Margot Price, and how she's kind of like plowing kind of some territory and turf for artists that are looking at doing that traditional style again. I think Kacey could be doing the same thing for a kind of different style here.
Yeah, it's kind of a neo country is what I've read it.
I like that. I like that. All right. Well, let's switch to a total different genre. Let's go back to something that's more like blues rock, and let's talk about Fantastic Negrito. Please Don't Be Dead. I wanted to attempt to say his name. He is Xavier Amen de Frepeles. Does that sound right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So he goes by Fantastic Negrito, and I'm really glad, because I don't think I would ever be able to say that name, and I'm sure I butchered it even when I just tried. But he released this record in June 15th, and it's on Cooking Vinyl Records. We mentioned it in our Best So Far list that we did earlier in the year. And towards the end of the year, it had kind of whittled down. It's only on a couple of end of year list. It peaked at number 3 on Billboard's Blue charts in the blues and roots and rock R&B category. So it's an interesting record, and it was on several of our lists. So I thought it would be one that we could cover. So let's just play Plastic Hamburgers, and then we'll come back and talk about this one for a bit.
That'll get you there.
Yeah, well, it's a really great blues record. Kind of like experimental blues. It's fun.
It is. It feels more organic than, like things like Jimi Hendrix, but to me, it has a lot of that kind of punch and stuff that it's even got funk, and then it's like funk and soul and blues mixed with almost like these gospel like choruses. I mean, just really a lot of traditional sounds mixed in with like just straight rock. I just think it's a really interesting record, and it's like that through and through. I mean, it's just an interesting album.
Yeah, man, it's cool seeing the popularity that he's gaining from this record, being that it is so heavy on the blues influence, because you're not really seeing as much of that. And getting a second Grammy nomination is really cool. I've noticed the kind of Americana scene has really latched on to Fantastic Negrito. I haven't been able to catch him live yet, but I really want to. It's all the videos and stuff that I see online. It's super high energy. It's just a fun record. It's a really fun road trip record.
It's so different to me, and even like you said, like some of the circles where he is getting a following, it's just so interesting, and he's got a crazy backstory, even down to like the cover of this record, is a picture of him in a hospital bed, and it's a real picture from when he was in a really bad car accident and evidently was in a coma for a while. They, that's kind of like the whole point of this record is just kind of facing your fear. As a matter of fact, let's play another song. This one's called A Letter to Fear. Let's play that one and finish talking about the record.
I go everywhere. I don't care what you say to me. I am not afraid. But I get a little nervous sometimes. I know anything can happen. Anywhere, anytime. I'm not terrified, but I get a little worried sometimes. Whatever you do to me, I will carry on. Whatever you say to me, I will carry on. I got friends, and they got friends too.
All right, that was Letter to Fear, and man, I think he's really, really great, and the album really is so interesting. All I could encourage anyone to do is to just try it out and listen to it. And this guy is so interesting. It really is. If anybody on this podcast, I would tell you to dig into and just like look up some articles about him. Like even his story is just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about one more record. I saved this one for last. This is Brandi Carlile, By the Way I Forgive You. It is once again another Dave Cobb production record. So we'll start the podcast and end with a Dave Cobb produced record,
And then lots of other Dave Cobbs in the middle.
Yes. This one, Dave did co-produce with Shooter Jennings. So Shooter and Dave produced this with Brandi. It came out really early in the year. This came out February 16th. It peaked at number 5 on Billboard's 200. It was number 1 on Americana folk albums and number 1 on rock albums. It was the Blind Tiger Record Club Singer Songwriter Record of the Month in March. We also talked about it a little bit on our Best of So Far episode that we did at the end of season 1. It was on a lot of end-of-year lists, number 12 on Rolling Stone, number 19 on American Songwriter, number 19 on NPR. At the 2018 Americana Awards and Honors, it won Album of the Year, She's Artist of the Year, and The Joke was Song of the Year. Let's just start things off by listening to that song. We actually played that song in season 1 when we were talking about the best album so far, but I think it's just worth hearing again because the song is phenomenal, and I'm fully anticipating it's going to bring her a few statuettes at the Grammys this year. So let's listen to that and let's come and dig into her record.
You're feeling nervous, aren't you, boy? With your quiet voice and impeccable style. Don't ever let them steal your joy and your gentle ways to keep them from running wild. They can kick dirt in your face, dress you down and tell you that your place is in the middle when they hate the way you shine. I see you tugging on your shirt
trying to hide inside of it and hide how much it hurts. Let 'em laugh while they can. Let 'em spin. Let 'em scatter in the wind. I have been to the movies. I have seen hands and the jokes on
Man,
So good.
It's her voice, man. She's incredible.
She really is. She's just such a talented vocalist. It's kind of the opposite of what we were saying about Musgraves earlier. Kacey has just like a pleasant kind of demeanor and a pleasant vocal. And Brandi Carlile, she is definition powerhouse vocal.
Yeah.
It's just unreal what she can do with her voice.
It is, and I would argue the fact that I think, and I have argued the fact that I think she's one of the most talented vocals in music today. But it's more than just that in that song. I mean, that song is an amazingly crafted, beautiful song. I don't care what you listen to. That song is going to move you. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, you need her vocals to sell it, but I don't think you should try karaoke in that song because I don't think it's going to come off the same. But that song is amazing.
And lyrically, she really takes you places on this record. And she got love songs, some more introverted thoughts. She's got some protest songs that are really good. I always think it's really hard to write like a good protest song, and I think she's kind of nailed that on this record. She's just an overall well-rounded artist, in my opinion.
That song, on top of all its other accolades and awards that we've already talked about that it's been nominated for or won, it also went number 4 on AAA radio. And I had read that when she went in the studio with Dave, her most successful single to date was the song "The Story." It was released in 2007. And so Dave basically told her that she hasn't had a vocal moment like that since. And I kind of pictured that moment where she comes in, she's got 2 producers sitting in front of her, and she's talking about songs, and he's basically saying, hey, let's write something more like you did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And the thing was, what Brandi came back with was the joke. It's just a crazy story to think about how that song was birthed, because I think that song is going to have some very, very long legs. I think it's going to be a career song for her.
Oh, absolutely. She's super hardworking. She's been busting it since this record came out. I mean, for years before that. But for a lot of people, they haven't been familiar with Brandi Carlile. She kind of, like this record was a lot of people's first impression of her, as far as like popularity growth, and people are just latching onto her left and right. It's really exciting.
I totally agree. Let's play one more off of this. Let's play "Hold Out Your Hand," and then we'll do some final thoughts on this record as well.
I run a lot of miles of life and crime, and mountain climbs and quitting times, packing that load of lying rhymes and tired jokes and wooden dimes. I've been everybody's friend, everybody's friend. I could lose my house, I could steal a car, I could serve 2 masters, living hard, living like a dog in a cage in the yard, with a fistful of cold hard cash that I can't let go. The devil can't have my soul, the devil can get your soul, the devil can get your soul.
Well, that was "Hold Out Your Hand," and that's just a really different song on the record, but I I think you get to hear some really fun vocal moments in that song. I mean, really, like you get to hear like some of her real power that she brings when she does kind of like more, almost like a rock, version. But it's a really fun tune.
I agree. That song gives me kind of Avett Brothers vibes a little bit.
It does. I mean, some of the chorusy, like gang vocal stuff's really fun too. But that song, it's just, I mean, it's an outlier for the record. I mean, for me, I mean, it doesn't sound like the rest of the record, but it's just a really fun one. I think this album is just a beautiful record from start to finish. And I mean, it doesn't matter to me if we're talking about lyrics or vocals or the production. It's absolutely one of my favorite albums of the year. And I mean, honestly, it could be, if not the best, it's one of Brandi Carlile's best, which I've been a big fan of hers since she came out. And I look forward to every record she puts out. And I'm telling you, this one is up at the top for me.
For sure.
Same.
I agree.
Guys, the last albums that I wanted to mention were just a couple that we would probably be spending a lot more time on if we hadn't already talked about them on previous podcasts in season 1. But John Prine's Tree of Forgiveness, and obviously, Austin, you've referenced John a lot in this podcast, but he was on all of our collective list, but we already did a whole podcast together, and so we didn't cover it again this record. And then another real big one was Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats, Tearing at the Seams. That was my favorite record of the year. If I was only picking one album and I actually put them at the top, that would be my number one. And the crazy thing is, I couldn't find that on any end of year list, and it's not, nominated for any awards. Like all the stuff that we've talked about with some of these other ones, none of that attention was paid to Tearing at the Seams. And all I can think is that I think a lot of people have missed a really amazing record. I think it's probably career defining for him. It's a really strong record. And so if you haven't heard it, I would, encourage everybody to check that one out as well.
Good stuff, y'all.
Yeah.
We've done it again.
Well, Austin, Cody, thank you so much again for digging into all these with me. And who knows, maybe we can do it again at the end of 2019.
Sounds good.
It would be a pleasure.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
For a dying man, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good. For a righteous man,
We also want to thank our sponsor, 85 Supply. The theme song for this season is For a Dying Man by Finnegan Bell. We appreciate their participation in the show, and you can check out more about them at finneganbell.com. Lastly, I just want to remind everybody that you do not have to be a member to shop at the record store, and all the music we discuss on this show is available in the store, as well as hundreds of other titles, many of them limited edition, colored, and rare vinyl. For listeners of this podcast, we are offering a special coupon only available here. Simply type in B.T.R.C. Box 5 in the coupon code at checkout to receive your first monthly vinyl for only $5. That's B.T.R.C. BOX 5 and start your monthly subscription in the style of your choice. So go to blindtigerrecordclub.com and find out how to get your monthly vinyl today. Your vinyl, your choice.
for a dying man, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good.